How do nine-figure CEOs think differently from 5 to 6-figure CEOs? Mike Fatter has built and sold Matoba Harvest for $419 million. Today, he's revealing the mindset shifts, his toughest decisions, and his biggest lessons that took him from startup founder to industry leader. Enjoy today's episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Business Strategist show with myself, Adam Strong. Today, we have an amazing show lined up for you. I'm with Mike Fatter, former chairman of the board and CEO, co-founder of a company called Manitoba Harvest Foods. He's also a best-selling author. He's the host, mentor, podcast, and he's also a non-exec and an investor. He's been acquiring and investing in new companies, and he's also got a new concept which we'll talk about towards the end of today's show. What's really interesting, what we're going to be covering today is Mike's health journey more than anything else, and how that was a platform in founding a company in the health food space, and then went on to grow, scale, and exit from that business for $419 million back in 2019. Mike's going to be talking about leadership, decision making. I'm going to get into Mike's brain and understand his psychological, emotional understandings. But more importantly, guys, this is going to be a masterclass. Make sure you got your notebook and pen handy because, listen, buckle up. Let's ready to rock. Mike, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's going to be good, man. Listen, I'm looking forward to this. This is like our first collaboration, and I know we recently met. Just reading about you, you seem such a cool guy. You're in your 40s like me, and you've accomplished so much. Congratulations, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, I haven't been sitting still. I just got started early too. I became an entrepreneur when I was 21, so I got 27 years of doing what I'm doing.
Very good, very good. It's interesting because I read your backstory, because I mean, you obviously Canadian and you grew up sort of poor background, if I remember rightly. Your mom was a single mom, stuff like that, very similar to yourself. And what was really interesting, like your backstory, which was like, I don't know, you gained like 300 pounds, which is not like a small amount of weight, but how did that happen? Was that because of because of poor dietary habits, or was it hanging around the wrong circles? Or, I mean, what was it? Stress? What was the catalyst?
Yeah, a combination of things, like growing up, and we were pretty poor. And so, eating cheaper foods, right? Like growing up on macaroni and cheese and hamburger helper and like the things that we could really afford, which then led into fast food, like McDonald's set up right beside our school. And then we had hamburger day. And, I did have a bad accident when I was 13, and I broke my leg, and I was in a cast for like over 6 months. And that was a kind of downward spiral moment. So it was just a combination of things, like really not understanding how to, how much nutrition and healthy lifestyle is important for not only weight management, but so many other things, right? Like just to actually to live our fulfilled life.
What was kind of like between 13 and 21, which is, I guess, when you became an entrepreneur, within that 8-year period time, what was your biggest moment where you felt so shit about yourself that things needed to change? What was that time?
Yeah, like I hit my rock bottom at 18. So, and I dropped out of school when I was, so I don't have any high school education, but I started working construction. But then, so I had a job and I was working, but I was eating like more fast food and more processed food, and had really like some eating disorder and like eating addictions and stuff that led me to by the time I was 18 years old, I weighed 300 pounds, just sick and tired all the time, depressed, emotional, moody, like physically, mentally, emotionally, I was a train wreck. And I decided that, and I felt this way like every day, right? Like you just get up and I'm like, wow, I just feel crappy. And one day I had enough. I was like, I need to do something about it. And then I started my health journey. Like I started working out and started to research and experiment with diet and nutrition.
You mentioned that you were sick and tired. You've heard of stories of like when people listen to like Jack Canfield, for example, and they just get off their ass. That was the catalyst, right? Was there some kind of a Jack Canfield moment like for you, or was it just a matter of, no, I need to make a different choice?
Yeah, I think I have an older brother. He's 4 years older, and he was chubby when he was a kid, but not as overweight, not obese like I was, and he had started already working out. So I had an example of what good looked like, and I think and also his support. Like he did tell me like, hey, when you want to start working, like 'cause everyone wanted the best for me, right? I'm sure that my community around me seeing me like 100 more than 100 pounds overweight, like when's Mike gonna make this turning point, and he was really supportive. Don was really supportive to say, hey, when you're ready to go, I'll go and work out with you. And so I think that combination of having enough, like I just didn't want to feel crappy anymore, but also had this idea or this vision of potentially what good looked like, and then had this lose a couple pounds and you feel a little
Right.
better, that you want to do more and more and more. And so it really fed on itself. So that's why I'm a big believer in just start whatever the journey is. If it's a health journey, whatever your journey is, just start, because it gets better after you start, and you can get on a roll.
It's interesting because you talked about like the fact that you started your health journey and it became kind of like an obsession from what I gather. That's the impression I got. You
Yeah.
became obsessed
Yeah.
with getting healthy. You kind of got that kind of, I suppose, the animal instinct, if you like, to want to improve yourself. I suppose that was kind of, when did like Manitoba Harvest came about? Was it just kind of like an idea, and then suddenly you're like, shit, I need to go out and find out what the best nutritional foods for you are? Like, I mean, you have
Yeah,
an interesting experimental journey, right?
yeah, that was basically it. Like I was working out and I was experimenting with my diet, but at that time the no fat diet was very popular, at least in North America. Dr.
Yeah.
Nathan Pritikin's materials, and so I was eating no fat foods and working out and losing weight. But I learned the hard way about essential fatty acids. Like I started to suffer. I had like dry skin, eczema. I had low energy and low mood, but I was at the health food store hanging out, and I bought this book, Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill, which basically is the Bible on fat. And I started reading and saying like, hey, if you don't eat essential fatty acids, omega-3s, omega-6, you're going to have all these issues. And I went down the checklist. I'm like, oh, I'm experiencing all these issues. Maybe that's my problem. I thought no fat was good, but it's really not. And we were kind of lied to, and then in the book, Udo mentioned that like hemp was the best source of essential fatty acids. It just wasn't available in North America. And I had met the other two co-founders of Manitoba Harvest that were lobbying the government to legalize hemp. So I came into it with always thinking hemp was cool before that, but now thinking, okay, wait, things are going to change from the no-fat diet to the right fat diet, and hemp could be that product. Like, and I could be the champion of bringing that to people because of my own personal experience with it.
I hear what you're saying. It's even the same in Europe. We all kind of grew up where we all felt that fat was bad for us. Then you had like the Atkins diet. Then you had like, what I'm saying? Like you'd have like, just go all carbs type of thing. And I guess from my perspective, and maybe from your perspective, is that it's not a one size fits all approach, right? But you found something that worked for you.
Yeah, I think, yeah. And I've learned a lot about nutrition, and I'm a big believer in balanced nutrition. Like we need protein, fats, and carbohydrates, and it's really the quality of those products too, so high quality protein, high quality fats, high quality, like nutrient dense, complex carbohydrates, and healthier sugars, right? And so that was my learning. There's no like fad diet that's going to work for long term. What works for long term is more of a whole food diet, and balance between macronutrients that your body needs. That's the science behind it. And so it took me a number of years to experiment and figure out what works for me as I was researching. But when I got into the business of health, when we founded Manitoba Harvest, I then started hanging out with all these other entrepreneurs that were also in health promoting businesses. And almost every day of the week, I was hanging out with consumers, like customers that were highly interested in optimizing their health. And so it became my whole lifestyle. And that's what really helped me move the needle and lose over 100 pounds. And now it's been, I've kept it off for 30 years.
Did you, just out of curiosity, and again, I suppose the natural inclination here is that, normally when someone has like great results with their nutrition and they have this kind of what you call it a transformational journey, is the general inclination is that they go into health coaching or they become a PT or whatever. Did that ever cross your mind?
Well, I am a certified health coach. I did go back. So after being a high school dropout, I went back and I got a certificate to be a health coach. That was like over 10 years, like almost 15 years ago now. And part of it was my personal interest at that point. And so I
Right.
wasn't thinking that that was going to be my business, but I'm still, 30 years later, I'm just as much and more interested in health than when I started the journey. But I was pretty sure after we got, a couple of years into Manitoba Harvest that we had an opportunity to make this a very big business, and
Mm.
it was all consuming for me. It's all I thought about. It's all I did, and many kind of 100-hour work weeks to bring it to its success that we did.
So, with regards to the kind of ideology with Manitoba Harvest, like, was it your idea or was it your co-founders and
Yeah,
your
well, a
buddies?
combination. The Martin and Alex had worked to lobby the government to legalize hemp, and so they were hemp activists, and put a lot of effort and multiple years, like 3, 4, 5 years before the three of us got together. I would say I was more of the catalyst because of my health journey and understanding the nutrition. So they worked to get hemp legal, and now they're like, okay, now what? And I'm like, oh, we have the healthiest seed here. And they were in the hemp business before that, like selling hemp textiles and paper and different kind of hemp
Oh,
materials. And I saw the opportunity to take the seed and the hemp food products and go and market it into health food stores, because I've been hanging out in health food stores for the last couple of years, like losing weight and stuff. And so I understood that, and I understood the similarities between, flaxseed and or linseed or flaxseed and hemp. And so it was the three of us coming together, but both both Martin and Alex were in the business for the first 8 or 9 years, but then both left the company, and I carried on until, for 20 years in the business, until we grew it to $100 million, and then
and I suppose, was that kind of like when Martin and Alex had left, was that all amicable or was it kind of like a sticky situation?
yeah, it was kind of, I tell people, pick your co-founders wisely, because it's like you're getting married, right? Like there's a
Yeah.
legal contract. It was a little bit of natural progression. We after year 10 or 8 or 9, we were doing about $10 million in sales per year. We raised venture capital. And so we had an institution that invested in the business, which then we formally structured a board of directors, and it got a little bit more serious than they were interested in. And I was super interested in okay, we're just getting started still, and so, yeah, it was pretty amicable. And they both were shareholders, and continued on to find success. And when we sold the business the first time, because
Right.
we ended up selling Manitoba Harvest twice, but yeah, they both realized success from the business as well.
But that's good. Just out of curiosity, what was your mindset like at the beginning of starting a new business? I mean, this is completely new, right? And you start the business at around 21 with the co-founders. Like, how was your mindset at that point in time?
Yeah, I think it was a really, like, a combination of anything's possible, because I just finished losing 100 pounds, and really transforming my body, right? Like, people that I grew up with didn't even recognize me. So I had this idea, and this clarity of really anything's possible, combined with I was super passionate about learning new things,
Mm.
because that was also the catalyst that got me personally into a much better place in life. And so I was just super interested in figuring things out, and we were starting from nothing. We had to teach the first farmer how to grow hemp seed and how to be successful with the crop. We had to figure out how to take a seed and manufacture it into hemp oil and hemp hearts and these food products. Had to figure out how we go into the first health food store and sell them our product, and how we market it. And so I just became super passionate about learning new things every day, and then putting those into practice, which some think is like, it's far away from a high school dropout. It's just that I triggered this super interest in myself.
Mm.
And it's one of the things that I tell people now: if you're an entrepreneur, or generally you're just doing something that you're interested in life, you're going to likely be really good at it, because you'll study and practice it until you're better than other people. And that's
Right.
basically what we did.
What would you say, from your perspective? What would you say is what were the biggest market shifts that helped you go from, say, 6 to 7 figure business, onto bigger? Like, what did you need to let go more of, and what did you need to embrace of more of?
I think and I say I'm a born entrepreneur, but I'm a made CEO. Like I became a made chief executive officer as we grew the business, because the larger the business, and for sure by the time that, it took us 5 years to get to $1 million in sales. And then from year 5 to year 10, we grew from 1 million to $10 million in annual revenue. By the
That's good
time we got
growth.
to $10 million in revenue, it's really about systems and processes, and
Right.
hiring a great team
Yep.
is the way to grow further. And so all of that was very new to me, but I learned through the different stages. Like even though I stayed up all night when we were a 1 or 2 year old company and labeling bottles and hand delivering them to the store myself, by the time you get to being a 8-figure business, you can't do that anymore. You wouldn't be successful, right? And so you have to develop what is a leadership style, how is it traditionally done. And so I took my passion for health and studying, and I started studying business and like larger businesses, and what is a good CEO, and what are all these formal business processes, because I never went to high school or university, so I didn't take any business classes. I had to learn it from just understanding it. So I probably read over 500 books, and half of them were health based books, and half of them were how to be a good business leader.
Right. Love that. Was there anyone that came off the top of your mind, especially in the early stages, like that took you under their wing and you thought, you know what, this person has really helped me get free from, moving you forwards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's a number that stand out. I always say to people that are super interested in building something better, and even building something world class, which I'm a big fan of. A Good to Great by Jim Collins is a fabulous book. It would be the first one that I'd recommend that an entrepreneur read, beside my book. Which is a different
Part of the
take.
punt.
Yeah, shameless plug there, but I
Love it.
think Good to Great is just because I'm a big believer, and this is how I've created my success, is that if you're going to do something, be best in class,
Yeah.
be world class, be better than your competition, and you're more likely to be successful. Now,
Mm.
again, not everybody takes that strategy or that approach. Some people want to be the cheapest product or the lowest cost or whatever, but
Sure.
I've just always found that if I took the highest quality way and significantly better than our competition, that we would win, and that's how we did win.
Was there any one person or a number of people also that helped you along the journey apart from just books?
Yeah, I was fortunate that I had some great mentors in my life, especially as the business continued to progress.
Yeah.
Started as mentors, and then even formalized in as some of my board members in the business, that helped coach and advised me. And also, I had some great peer-to-peer mentors as the business grew, like other entrepreneurs that were in the natural products industry, but they had non-competing businesses, but we were all growing at a very similar stage, so we could share best practices with each other and information. And plus, we just loved hanging out, and because we were traveling to different trade shows and events. So I'm a big believer in mentorship, and I tell people, sometimes it's hard to get that old guy or gal that's done it before as your mentor. But if you could do that, that's great. But everybody can go and get peer-to-peer mentorship by making friends with people in their industry, whatever their industry is, in a non-competing business, and just help them out. Share time and help each other. And then obviously there's mass mentorship, which I personally try to do a lot of, but people can learn from. If you just pick 4 or 5 people that you're interested in learning from and dive deep into them, their social media, their newsletter, their book, whatever, their podcast, whatever else, like this podcast, you can learn a lot that way. And so a combination of all 3 forms of mentorship I found I utilize to grow my business, and I highly recommend to others that are growing in their career.
Love it. Some great advice there. Interesting. Growing a company to like $100 million in revenue, being a CEO, you have to make a lot of hard choices, right? What was the most difficult leadership decision you had ever made, and what did you learn from the experience?
Mm. Yeah, one of the hardest for me, the hardest ones were about people, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't, the saying, like, it's just business, it's not personal. I'm not a big fan of that saying. And so
Right.
we got to a place where we were growing rapidly. We're probably about $20 million in revenue annually, and we had to expand our factory. We were like 100% capacity in our factory. So we spent $7 million to do a expansion on our factory, and we basically 4 times the output of the factory. It took about a year and a half to go through it.
Wow.
At the end of that expansion, what I realized was, oh, we just went from 100% capacity in our business, and now we're down at 25% capacity, and it's not enough to keep all the team that we have busy. And so, because we were running at that time 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so the hardest thing I ever had to do was let go of our about 25 of our team members to go back down to 16/5 production shifts. And my biggest learning from that is, growth isn't always linear, and they do say in business, and this is true to me, like expansion can kill good businesses. So understand big moves that you're making in your business, especially when you're when it has to do with people, like you're putting in new departments, or you're expanding internationally, or if it has to do with manufacturing, because to undo some of that, there's going to be people that are hurt.
Yeah.
It was one of the most challenging meetings, one of the most challenging times that I've ever had in business.
Did you pre-anticipate that was going to happen though?
I didn't see it that clearly, now, I can be a good mentor and advisor to other businesses that are going through the expansion, because a lot of people think that, in that case, that when you're in manufacturing, that capital expenditures, CapEx, is going to solve your problems. But you actually also have to go through, well, how's that going to change the OpEx, the operating expenses, and the structure of it? Because I've seen, and I've coached now dozens of entrepreneurs in that exact same position, because a lot of times if you're going to expand, it doesn't, if you're in manufacturing, it doesn't make sense to double your capacity. A lot of these pieces of equipment and stuff say, oh, you need to be 4 or 5 times your capacity. Well, when you do that, it's the other end of that is usually a labor issue.
I agree with you. People, it's such a difficult one because you kind of become, because you build relationships with them, don't you? You have feelings, and it's difficult to separate business from personal. It's how can you separate those? Like, it's difficult to do. Like, I don't know how you felt emotionally about that.
Yeah. Some people do it, and I'm just not that kind of leader, right? I've developed my leadership style is more of a servant-based leader. So
Right.
understanding the individuals on my team, what they're personally best at, what they're interested in, how they need to learn and grow, and then setting them up for success in the business. That's been my approach. That's worked really well for me. Again, some people are like, they're different kinds of leader. They're a top-down leadership approach. They're an iron fist leadership approach. And it works for them. It doesn't work for me. And so I do have a empathy and a strong emotional attachment to team members. And I made some mistakes, right? I used to say, like, we're all family, which was just, I felt that way. And, we gave people the opportunity to grow, and we had all these programs, and we were definitely a different business in that sense. But you don't fire family, So when you have to come to a place where, oh, sorry, we made wrong business decisions, or it didn't expand like we thought it would. It was very emotionally challenging on me. Like that day that we had to sit in front of, at that point we had 150 team members and let 25 of them go in like an all team meeting. I broke down, and it was a very emotional moment for me as a leader.
How do you think that other people that were sitting in the room, how do you think that make them feel? I mean, do you think there was like this level of insecurity? Like, was everyone demotivated? Like,
No, I think, what I heard from everyone after was very consistently from the other team members were they trusted me, that they knew that I thought what was best for the business, and I knew what had to happen, as challenging as it was, that they felt through the way that I thought through it and presented it to the team, that it was authentic. And so all of that afterwards kept, because we continued to grow, right? And we ultimately did 2 or 3 years later get back to 24/7 production again when we needed that capacity. And before that, even, it wasn't just that meeting. Like, I was trying when we when I realized like, oh, we have way too much capacity for the labor that we have. We paid people to clean. We paid people to count inventory every day of the week. We paid people to go out and because we had a social aspect to our business, like volunteer time. We tried all those things over 3 or 4 months, but we were losing money, and it was there's no end in sight. So I think the team also saw that part of the business, and ultimately we became a stronger team after that, and took our manufacturing and our business up from operational excellence to world class.
Nice. I read. So, like, did you ever feel like you were sprinting too much, but really you should have been like learning to walk rather than learning to run or sprint?
Yeah. Yeah, I did feel like for a lot of the time in the business, we were growing so fast, right? Like for the second decade in the business, it took us that 10 years I mentioned to get to 10 million in revenue, but then we went
Right.
from 10 million to 100 million over 10 years. So it's basically $10 million of growth per year. Massive amount of growth for the size of business that we were. It felt like a lot of times I was hanging off a flagpole and we were just getting like carried in the wind, and didn't always feel like I had enough time to get a good understanding personally on the situation before I had to make a decision as the CEO. And through that time, I learned a lot about trusting my gut, because I believe every entrepreneur needs to trust their gut. You can have great people around you and great advisors around you, but what makes an entrepreneur special is that they have an intuitive sense of what has to happen. So the best thing to do is take everyone else's advice, internalize that, figure out what feels right to you, and then make the decision. And I got away from that sometimes through some of those times because we were just going so fast, and so yeah, your comment on running before he could crawl in some new aspects of business was definitely there.
Between 21 and 31, that you're still very young for being a CEO. There must have been a lot of things that you achieved, but also there must have been a lot of fuck ups and mistakes along the way, right? What was your biggest mistake as a CEO? How did you recover from it? And how did that lesson shape you as the way that you kind of led the company forwards?
Yeah, I think my biggest, I go back to people all the time. My biggest mistake as a CEO was taking great people that were good at their job and then promoting them into a brand new position that really set them up to fail,
Oi.
and I've learned a lot about, and hey, I'm all for, again, like recruiting good talent and then helping grow them in the business. When your business, if you have the ability, if your business is growing really, really quickly,
Yeah.
a lot of times not everybody can grow. And I was growing at a rapid pace as a leader myself. And so I saw that in everybody. Oh, everybody has the ability to grow really quickly. Well, that's not the case. Everyone's different. And some people that make good managers aren't actually going to be a good director, or they're never going to be a vice president of operations or vice president of sales. And so promoting them into a new position instead of going out and hiring talent that has done it before, it was one of my big learnings. And so I had a shift somewhere in the business path. That was when we were making big investments. I wanted people on the team that had done it before and then could prove to me that they were capable of doing it again and could share the vision of what that looked like.
What was the conversations that you had with, say, maybe an individual that you recognize as someone that would take on kind of more of a senior role? Maybe it didn't work out. Maybe it did work out. Like, what was the approach there?
Yeah, I got better at, because I'm not saying we never promoted our team. I got better at being very clear to them that, hey, if you're a supervisor and we're giving you this manager opportunity,
Mm,
if it doesn't work out, if you fail as a manager, we may not have a role for you after that, because we're gonna go hire a new supervisor to replace your role.
sure.
And so you making this decision, you have to feel like you're really going to be able to grow quickly into the manager's shoes. And so I think more time on the diligence part of it, and the conversation, the communication with the team member, to make sure that they knew what they're up against, and that they felt confident. They still would have the business's support, but listen, if you didn't fit the role after like a month or 2 or 3 of training, and it happened. And sometimes some people were very quick and they assumed the new role and no problems, and some people are like, we had that conversation saying, hey, remember 2 months ago we talked about this, and instead of staying in the supervisor position. You wanted the role. It's not working out, and worst case scenario has happened. We don't have another role for you, and you're going to have to leave the business.
It's yeah, I mean that must have been tough. Did they ever feel the pressure like internally, because like you had this expectation of them or demand that suddenly they might, if I don't perform or if I don't step up, I'm going to be out of my job. Like, did they
Yeah.
ever
Oh
felt
yeah.
the
I mean,
pressure?
there was, in the climb from 10 million to $100 million, there was a lot of pressure cooker moments for many people in the business, including myself. The best thing that I could do was lead by example, saying like, hey, some of these things are new to me. I'm taking them on. Like I understand. It's like, instead of a 40 or 50-hour work week, it's requiring a 60 or 70-hour work week from me is the only way to kind of get on top of it. And so at least I was giving what I thought I was giving team members an example and a path forward. And then the positive side of it, we were winning, right? Like when you grow at that pace, a lot of great things happen for the business, which means a lot of great things happen for the team. People were earning their bonus. They were earning, we had a great stock option plan. So a lot of the team members were owners in the business. They were earning
Nice.
a piggy bank of equity that ultimately they got paid. Some of our team members, a number of them became millionaires when we sold the business. And so that kind of offset the moments. And I look to, for leadership, I look to both sports and military for ways to build culture in a team, and set up a winning team and encourage a winning team. And so, like a sports team that's going for a championship play, it's a pressure cooker moment. There's no time to do anything but be your best. But hey, the reward is right there for everybody if you win. And so trying to show up and be that example and hold everyone accountable to their highest standard became the norm.
Was there a particular idea of the culture that you wanted to create from the very start? Like, did you have something in your mind? Like, what was that in your mind?
Yeah, I wanted our culture was aligned to our mission and our values, and as I teach it to other entrepreneurs and to other executives, like the mission of the business and the values of the business are the culture that you want, and so
Right.
our mission at Manitoba Harvest was to be the highest quality hemp food manufacturer and brand, to be the global leader, to educate everyone on the healthy properties of hemp, and to support sustainability in all that we do. And so that was a frame, that everyone was like, okay, we're going to be of service, educating people. We're going to always take the highest quality road, which it was played into our core values of quality, honesty, transparency, trust. Like when we showed up as our values. And so I felt like, and I've learned a lot through this, like as soon as you have a clearly defined mission and values, your job as a chief executive and even as the senior leadership team is to uphold those values in the business. That's what creates the culture. Because as soon as you're offside and you have one thing printed on the wall, but no one acts that way, you have a misguided culture. But we our team knew that we wanted to be the best in the world at hemp foods, and we were making investments and showing up that way every day. And so that's how they performed.
Was it you that had those standards and you imprinted those standards to
Yeah,
bring that
we
up?
developed it really early on. And I say, like, even if you're a startup and you're a business of one, I think you should have a mission and values of how you stand up.
Yeah.
What I've learned through that is a lot of the mission and the values that Manitoba Harvest that we created. A lot of those are my values that I brought to the business, which is true for a lot of founders and entrepreneurs. But we literally did take it to a place where we trained everyone on it. We interviewed before you joined. I would learn through, hey, not only experience and competency based interview questions, but also fit. And the fit was, okay, tell me a time that you had a choice of the quality approach and the non-quality approach. And then you made, what decision did you make, and what was the outcome, right? Like making sure that people that we were hiring were really into quality. They were really into education. They were really into sustainability. And then when they got hired and they were trained, it just continued all the way along.
Really, really good stuff. After you started stepping away from Manitoba Harvest, how's your definition of success changed over the years? Because listen, you're in your 40s. There's such a small percentage of successful people that go on sell their business, right? You are such the small minority, and your definition of success has obviously miraculously changed over the last 20, 25 years. Obviously, you still prioritize health, which is amazing to see. What's your definition of success now?
Yeah. So, and yeah, I have been, I know I'm very grateful. I'm very fortunate. I understand the odds, that we've had 3 9-figure exit deals, in business.
That's crazy.
And so, and I think about this as kind of like, again, championship in sport, like it's like raising the Stanley Cup or raising the trophy up 3 times in business. Well, the first time that we sold the business in 2015, the majority, it was life changing for me, right? It gave me enough personal wealth, and that I wasn't really worried about that in life. Okay, but we're continuing on because I realized that I'm not someone to like retire or something. You're doing something. What do I want to be doing? Well, I'm highly interested in helping other people win. It's besides winning myself, it's the number 2 thing that I love to do is helping other people win. And so when we ultimately sold Manitoba Harvest in 2019 in the $419 million transaction, that gave me enough personal family wealth to start investing in other businesses and helping other businesses. And so I was quite sure at that time that I wasn't fit to operate a business again. Like I couldn't handle the stress level after 20 years of growing $100 million business. But I am super passionate about growing business and strategy and aligning teams and developing culture and agriculture and manufacturing, all these things. And so I set out to just find entrepreneurs that were also in the health and food business and see how I could help them outside of just money, like help them with investment in the business, but also advise and coach and mentor them to be better executives. And ultimately, I had my first portfolio company full circle exit in Soul Cuisine, where I helped Dror Belshine, the founder, 3 times their business and then sell it in a $125 million transaction. And so then I thought, okay, Adam, I got this, right? Like not only did I do it a couple times myself, but now I realize that I can help other people be their best self and grow their best business. And now the world kind of sees 5 years later to that a portfolio of companies, my book and speaking and social media and mass mentorship tools that I share, really just because I get fired up to see other people win.
Love
I
that.
love helping other people win.
You'd been in the business for like 20 years. How did you feel emotionally when you're selling it? It's the end of the road. You're walking away. Like, how did it make you feel emotionally? What was you thinking when you thought, okay, this is the offer? Do I take it or can I get more? What was your initial thoughts when that came through?
Yeah, I mean, because I had been in transition already for a while, for 4 years, because when we sold the majority control to private equity in 2015, I knew that at some point we were going to sell the whole business. So it wasn't brand new to me, that thought, but regardless, there was still a heavy grieving process when we sold the business, which I never thought, and a lot of entrepreneurs don't think, like your business becomes your lifestyle and your legacy and your persona. And that's just in general in life. People come up to you, they say, when people first meet you, they say, "Hey, Adam, what do you do?" And you're like, "I'm the CEO of XYZ." You know what I mean? And so you don't have that
Absolutely.
anymore. And we had a team of 200 team members. I was used to being in and around and sharing leadership with them, and I wasn't welcome. I didn't have my swipe card. I don't have my keys to the business anymore. It just so happened that my ex and I of 15 years decided it was time to get a divorce, and my mom died unexpectedly, all within a couple of weeks of us selling the business. And so I had this
Shit.
crazy triple grieving whammy, and it took me out of commission for several months to try to figure out, okay, like what am I going to do next? But like, so I could speak passionately about it because I've seen entrepreneurs that just go, okay, wait, I'm great. I have more money than I know what to do with, or I'm set for life in my bank account now. But I wake up the next day and all I want to do is want to go to the team. I want to go with my team and win and figure out the next problem, because I've been doing this for a decade or decades. And it's something for entrepreneurs just to be mindful of, so it doesn't smack them in the face, because I've seen people that don't fare so well in that. They turn to
Right.
like drugs or alcohol or other vices, and because they don't have their outlet to actually show up in their leadership position.
First of all, Mike, that must have been a really tough time for you. I mean, seriously, that is crazy. Going through a massive life event of selling your business, and then you've got mum passing away, and then obviously your partner breaking up and divorce and stuff. I mean, fuck, dude. I mean,
Yeah, that
that
was
is
crazy. Yeah, that
that's
was
not
crazy.
just what.
I literally went from I was on top of the world to okay, I have all this time and money, but I can't show up to the business because I'm not welcome there anymore. I can't hang out with my kids every other week because I only have them like 1 week out of 2, and I,
Right.
I can't go and visit my mom ever again. You know what I mean? And so I'm sitting at home going, now what? And the only thing that I the number one thing that I'm grateful for is that I had all these years of experience of working on my health. And
Yeah.
that's really what saved me in that moment, because I went into monk mode. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but and your listeners can Google it. It's a real thing. It's like an intense focus on oneself. You're just your healthy aspects to you. So, focusing on my sleep and my nutrition and my exercise and my meditation, and just be and like simple days of focusing on being my best me. And then, and that's something that I've carried forward. And I, I help coach people that are going through major transitions in life. That if you're in a major transition, whether you got a divorce or positively sold your business, or someone died, or whatever, you had a health issue, whatever happened, like having an intense focus on being your best self is going to give you the best outcome of getting out of that transition into somewhere that's positive, not more negative.
You feel like, and again, you don't have to answer this question, but do you feel like the reason why maybe the divorce happened was because of the 15, 20 years of graft that you put into the business?
It's part of it. I think it didn't make it easier, like travel a lot and being away. Like some of those things were hard for me, being away from my young kids when we were, I was going to Walmart to pitch our products with our team, or to Costco, to all these massive opportunities, right? But it was actually when I started staying home that we had more conflicts, and because we had, we got together in our 20s, and then by our early 40s, we weren't compatible people anymore, and so made the decision to separate. Thankfully, and all those years that I worked really hard, like I knew that I was taking care of my family from a wealth standpoint, right?
Right.
But yeah, it's not, entrepreneur's life is not easy, and I've realized now, like I've been dating for the last 3 years, to give you perspective, and my girlfriend's an entrepreneur, and it's a totally different situation, like, so I think, and it doesn't always work out this way. People have different relationships, but I think entrepreneurs, that are with other entrepreneurs, have a very similar shared mindset, that they're going after their passion. They're doing something. They're making something out of nothing. They're burning the candle at both ends when needed, and that's like one of the ways to create extraordinary success.
I hear you. I won't go into it deep now, but I had a similar thing, not divorce, but breakdown after my breakdown of my previous relationship. So it's not an uncommon thing, which is what I'm kind of saying to you.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, was there any, after that major events that happened, did you ever feel like you'd ever kind of regretted, or did you ever feel like you made the wrong decision? Like, I don't know if you ever believe in the universe, but I believe in the universe. Like, they say that bad luck comes in threes, right? I guess in your case it fucking came true,
Yeah.
right? Did you ever kind of like think to yourself, like, did I really make the right decision? Like, you kind of.
I always think like that, but it, like imposter syndrome, or like second guessing my decisions. But I know I feel the most comfortable, and I spend a lot of time in kind of meditative, mindful space on this. Everything happens for a reason. Even the bad
True.
stuff happens for a reason. And I like stories like the farmer and the horse. Are you familiar with the farmer and the horse story, right? Like you don't know what's good and bad in life. Even when bad things are happening, the good thing, it may be because there's a good trigger that's right around the corner. And so the best thing we could do especially in challenging times, is keep a positive mindset, and then you're going to get back into a positive situation. If you let negative times give you a negative mindset, and you get into kind of a victim mentality, look out, you could snowball to a really, really, really bad mess.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was speaking with somebody last week actually, and I said, if you wake up and and you say to yourself, I'm gonna have a shit day, then guess what? You will have a shit day.
Oh
There's
yeah,
no doubt about it. You made
yeah,
that choice. It's a
yeah.
conscious choice, right? And so, you know, what's really interesting what you said there, as you said, you started questioning the universe and said things happen for a reason. But then you started questioning the status quo, which is really interesting. You said, and you flipped it on its script and you said, hey, things happen for a reason. And then you start questioning why those things happen, which is fascinating. I think that's great. I think that was a great mindset shift.
Yeah, I
Thanks for
think,
sharing
well,
that.
and I in a different way said it's just winning, or I'm a big mindset believer in, it's just you're winning or learning, right?
Yeah.
There is no losing. If we're mindful and we could look for the lesson in everything in life, then we can't fail, because then we're not a victim. We're taking responsibility for whatever it is, whatever happened to us for whatever reason, what we can learn from it, what we could do different, or the
Yep.
approach that we're going to take, and then just carry on, keep on going.
Love that. For you guys that are listening in, by the way, I hope that you are enjoying our episode. Listen, I mean, I'm having a ball here with Mike, by the way. Like, I'm really going in deep and finding out so much. Like, we've been going for like more than 50 minutes, and I hope this is a masterclass for you guys. It doesn't matter if you're a 5, 6, 7, 8-figure business owner or entrepreneur, whatever it is. I think a lot of the things that Mike is teaching in terms of and he's teaching us from his personal experience. Like, this is not made up shit, guys. This is not like things which he's read in a textbook. This is his personal experience, which is what I love about today's conversation. Now, what I'd love to do, Mike, with you, if it's okay, because I know that you've moved and transitioned into the world of acquisitions, and you've done that for the last 6 years. I'd love it to go into coaching mode. And I mentioned, for you guys that don't know, but I'll quickly remind you, I'm looking at making my first acquisition. And listen, I'm coachable. Well, you'll be the judge of that, of course. But from my perspective, I'd love to, if I was coming to you and I said, Mike, I want you to coach me. Like, you've been doing this for many, many years. Like, what are some of the questions that you would ask me? And maybe it's to test to see if that I'm ready, number one. Or like, if I said to you, what is it that I need to look for and things like that? Like, where would you start?
I always start with the why, right? I've learned
Yeah,
the why is the most important thing in business. So, like, why are you doing it? Do you are you looking for a business that is aligned to one of your personal interests and passions in life? Or is it just simply you want a cash flowing business? Like, what is the first why? I think it is critically important, because that sets everything up from there,
yeah.
of how you're going to analyze and due diligence and look for these opportunities.
Okay, so I can answer that question, by the way. So, well, we'll both be familiar that less than 18% of all businesses that are sold worldwide, less than 18% actually exit from their business. It's such a low number. We're talking about global businesses.
Yeah.
I think less than 48% actually have an exit plan in place.
Mhm.
And so one of my missions is I'd love to be able to help more people exit their business and help them to show them that they have an asset rather than just a glorified job.
Yeah, I think that's great. And you're right. Like, we're seeing it, a lot of it right now, because you have all these baby boomers in business that when they're done their business, they just wind it up. They
Yep.
just close the shop. And it's
100%.
all different kinds of businesses, from like simple ones, like people are running a laundromat or a corner store, or they have a service business and they're doing some kind of construction, or they're doing an accounting and they just close it up, and they stop doing it. And so this opportunity for both business owners to see it, as you mentioned, that they have an asset, and understanding that there's a equity opportunity for them, but also for the younger generation to look and see, like, you don't need to start a business to be successful. You don't need to have a crazy idea to be a successful entrepreneur, you can go and find one of these businesses that's been in business for 10, 20, 30 years and already has a customer base, and go and acquire it and then bring your special sauce to it. And your special sauce may be just something simple like do some automation, or do marketing a little bit different, and communicate to a younger generation or audience, and you could have a successful business and grow it from there. So yeah, I think the world is ripe for entrepreneurs. Um, whether and that again, that approach is a lot better for people that have been maybe in a corporate role and
Mm,
they're a little bit older in life, like maybe
right.
they're in their 40s, there's and then they think, hey, I want to get it, I want to be an entrepreneur. We'll go and acquire a cash flowing business, and then innovate it from there.
Yeah. Like for you specifically, is there any type of business that you'd like to invest in? Like what makes it so attractive for you?
Yeah, I think for me, I've realized my lane is food and beverage, right?
Right.
And specifically healthy or better for you food and beverage. Just because that's where I'm a smart guy, and I think I'm a good entrepreneur, and I could see business opportunities all over the place, but where I can really, really add my value because of my 20 years experience is in our industry, which is the natural
Yeah.
products, natural food and beverage industry. And so those are my portfolio companies, private companies that I'm invested in are in that space, because I can bring more than just money to the businesses. I can bring relationships, I can bring knowledge, and I'm highly interested. Like they play
Yeah.
into my interest for a healthy lifestyle. So I think that my biggest learning is, I've invested in some companies that I wasn't involved as a private investor. It doesn't work out. I might as well invest in the stock market. If I'm invested, I'm going to be all in, even though I'm not operating the business. There's the founders and entrepreneurs that are operating the businesses. I have to be highly interested in this business and play an active role as an advisor or a board member, or it's just not going to be a right fit for me.
What would the from your perspective, like what would be the ideal exit strategy? Would it be like go in 90-day exit? I mean, you can go in any business, right? Add some value and then come up with a 3, 5, 10x multiple, whatever the choice is. But what sort of timescale should I be looking at after acquiring a business? Like, what's your game plan? Like, what's the advice
Yeah, I
there?
think what I've learned, and so now we sold 3 companies, and I've invested in like a dozen. It's probably a good 6 month process actually to acquire a business, and whether you have the skills to do that yourself, or you need support like a buy side investment banker. There's people that are brokers that help to bring these deals forward, because you have to. There's the due diligence you have to go across, and I'm a departmental kind of thinking guy. You have to do due diligence on all aspects of the business, right? Understand the sales, the marketing, the operations, and the finance, and then also the capitalization. Like, how are you pricing this business? How are you going to finance the business, through debt or through equity? And so, really understanding that will determine what the risk profile is, which should determine how much you're willing to pay. Because it's a
Yeah.
big range, especially in our business. Like in a normal business, you could say, okay, well, a business is worth, somewhere between 3 to times sales. And then second time for 4 times sales. And then
Wow.
Soul Cuisine, our portfolio company, we sold 5 times sales. So different, and tech companies could be even bigger than that. It could be 10 or 20 times sales. So understanding, if you're going to go buy a laundromat, it's probably 3 or 4 times its free cash flow. But it depends. Is all the equipment in there
Yep.
still usable? Are you going to have to replace that? What is what does the labor look like? What is what are they doing any sales and marketing? Like all these things. And so a good some assistance in buying or selling a business is not a bad idea.
Yep.
Investment bankers and brokers get paid to do a good job, and they should be able to save you the money that they cost to help you with the transaction.
When you do the due diligence process, do you do that yourself or do you outsource?
I do it myself. Like when we sold Manitoba Harvest the first time, we paid an investment banker $5 million to
Whoa.
sell the business, and we sold it for 132 million. They paid for themselves. Anything
Yeah.
over 100 million was our target, so they really paid for themselves. But what I got a tremendous amount of education seeing how a world class investment banker at that scale does the process deal. And so now I have the benefit on the last two times that we sold the businesses, we didn't use an investment banker. In Soul Cuisine, in the portfolio transaction, like I brokered the deal. And then yeah, we had our advisors, like our legal and accounting advisors, help with some of the diligence, but you have to, you got to know what good due diligence looks like. And there's just some standard lists you can get of understanding,
Right. Right.
financials and all these different things. But if you don't know that, if you've never been through it before, that's where a third party can really be.
When when you made your first acquisition, do you make any mistakes? Like what was the mistakes that you made, and like did it cost you a lot or
I don't think I've ever. I don't think I've made like significant mistakes. I think the biggest mistakes I've seen in the industry is either, overpaying or underestimating risk. Right.
yeah,
And those are the two things that are going to really hurt. But there's mechanisms to protect yourself. When you on reps and warranties that a business makes when they're selling to you, they're representing that things are as they say, so you don't get any
yeah,
surprises or undue risk. There's also, and we've utilized it in two of the transactions, you could buy reps and warranties insurance. So you can buy an insurance policy that if everything wasn't as it was presented to you, and you have these contracts that come out of nowhere after you bought the business, and now you assume these big contracts, that
right.
there's insurance to cover some of that. So yeah, I think those are the major concerns or the major things that happen or that the founder in smaller businesses or the entrepreneur or the founder is so integral into the business that when they leave, a number of their customers go with them, and so the sales kind of drop. That's a one to watch out for too.
What do you do to reduce risk, like from your perspective? I mean, risk is a difficult one. I suppose there must be some sort of framework or methodology you do to reduce
Yeah,
that risk.
I think what my learning is that growth cures most evils in business.
Nice, I like it.
Yeah, and so the biggest thing you could do to lessen your risk, especially if you're thinking about acquiring or investing in the business, is really be clear on calculated on how likely it is to grow the business. Because if you can go and double a business and you see a clear path to doubling it, that doubling the business and that sales increase is going to clean up a lot of little issues in the business, right?
Love it.
So yeah, growth cures most evils in business. And so I'm always looking for the growth opportunity in business and make sure I understand it, because $1 million business that is not set up like the first $1 million in a business. People say, like, show me a path to, how likely am I going to grow if I'm $1 million business to a $2 or $5 million business? It depends how that $1 million business is made up. Like
True.
in the consumer products business, if you have like one or two products and you're selling it to a small network of stores and you got to $1 million, it's pretty easy to say, oh, okay, well, if we go to a larger network of stores or we add another product or two,
Yep.
those are mechanisms to double or triple the business. But the flip side is, death by 1,000 cuts. If you had 10 products over 1,000 stores to get to your $1 million, you'd say that's very hard to replicate now. And you're not going to have 20 products to get to $2 million. There's just too much risk in that, right? So
Yep.
understanding the makeup of those sales and then the likelihood that there's a clear growth path for you with the business.
Love it. Listen, I know that we could talk for hours, but I know we don't have hours. But just before we wrap up, tell us a little bit more about your book and where do we find it?
Yeah. Grow. The book is Grow, 12 Unconventional Lessons for Becoming an Unstoppable Entrepreneur. You can find it on Amazon or online, wherever books are sold. I've learned in business that if you make conventional decisions, you usually get a conventional outcome, which is not always good, And there's some unconventional things you could do, and that's kind of that's how I grew up, right? I grew up without formal education, and so I learned that aligning your personal and passions with a business is a very good thing. Building community around your business is a very good thing. Becoming the highest quality or even a global expert in a business is a very good thing. And so there's lessons that I learned that I break down with not by theory, by my own personal experience and what people could do to take and rapidly scale their idea or their business, and it's become a best-selling success. So I'm happy that it is. It's also, I personally recorded the audiobook if people like listening to books instead of reading it, but I suggest your listeners check it out.
There you go. I suppose my last question, just before we wrap up, because I'm truly inspired. Most of us didn't go to the school of entrepreneurship. Well, I certainly didn't. And there's just so many lessons to be learned from Mike's role as CEO, leadership, like just 20 years of hard graft, not all sunshine and rainbows. There's been shit along the way. I'm sure there is, isn't it, Mike?
100%. No, it's all business is all about solving problems, learning something new, taking action, doing change management the next day, building a team around it.
Yep.
Like we shouldn't get into business thinking that it's going to be all smooth sailing, or
Nope.
get into anything in life. Be prepared to win, to learn and grow. And if you're questioning whether you'll make a good entrepreneur or not, if you're interested in personal and professional growth on the continuum, that's a good sign,
Right.
because that's what it's going to take, I believe, to not only be successful in business, but have a continued success in business. You gotta start that momentum, and then you got to continue the momentum on.
I'm curious to know, now you've achieved all of this, you're still very young. What is it that you want to become? What do you want your legacy to be?
Yeah, I feel like I'm doing it right now. I think about my legacy not as like what has Mike Fata done, what I've shown others to do, that they could be their best self. If you start with becoming your best self, which has a lot to do with health,
Right.
and healthy principles, but if you're your best self, and then you could do your best work, and if you choose like that like top shelf, or like the highest quality, and doing your best work, and building your best community, like actually building, because if your community wants you to win, you're unstoppable. You put those three things together of best self, best work, and best community, you're going to be successful. And it doesn't matter whether you're in the food and beverage business, if you're in the construction business, whether you're in the tech business, like those are approaches that are, it's in perpetuity in life, it'll serve. And so that's really what I want my legacy to be, is to show other people that it's available to them. And now we
Love
have countless amount of stories that are. So it's great. I got many more years to prove that out.
100%. Listen, Mike, first of all, just wanted to say, I know you're very humble. I know super grateful and appreciated for your time today. I want to just say thanks so much, man.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me. I enjoyed the conversation.
Listen, guys, hope you've enjoyed today. Listen, check out Mike's links below. We're going to put more in the show description notes. Make sure you also, wherever you are in the world, make sure you go over to Amazon, whatever your good bookstore is. Go check out Mike's book called Grow. Okay, highly recommended. Whether it be physical copy, audio, whatever it might be, and learn about more lessons that we haven't covered in today's podcast. For you guys that are listening in as well, if this is the very first time that you've listened in, congratulations. I hope you've enjoyed today's interview and awesome lessons. If you have enjoyed it, please do me a favor. I don't give you a shit if you give me a 1-star or a 5-star. Go over to Apple or Spotify. Please leave a review. If there's anything that if there's anything that you could do for me, just leave a review. Me and Mike will be so grateful. And from me and Mike, thanks so much. And hopefully we'll see you soon on the Business Strategist. Take care. We'll see you soon. Cheers now. Bye-bye.